Spit bars, I stand behind mine. Yeah. Sentences I serve, maximize guidelines. My lawyer can't give me his advice when these beasts that I murder carry mandatory minimums of life. Yikes. In case you didn't get the point, we spit bars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Maximum Sentence, where there's conviction behind the bars. I'm your man, AJ Throwback. Great to be here with you on another awesome Wednesday, where we are continuing our breakdown of my latest single, the A-side, Take 37. But before we go any further, if this is your first time tuning in for any of my content, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification so that whenever I go live, post a new video, premiere a new video, you'll be among the first to know. Now that we got that out of the way, normally we have comments, but this week, no comments, and that's perfectly fine. But I definitely appreciate everybody for your support, for those who watched or just shared it. I definitely appreciate shares. That's always appreciated. But while I'm here, and if you haven't heard my latest single, Take 37, which is back with Senior Week Forever, please make sure that you go to my website, BAMMLLC.net/music is where you can get all of my music. Or if you're a Bandcamp person, you can go to my Bandcamp page, ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get into some more of these lyrics. We're going to pick up actually right where we left off last week. So I'm going to start with the lines where I say, monstrous, but largely I paused it. Probably being comfortable with making beats caused it. But yeah, buddy, first time in the booth, just an intro. But the first lines were the truth, and I heard myself, grown up, compressed. Flow is jai hot, I might need a cold compress. So I wrote complex, rhyme to keep my arms stretched from a competition, but it's still not a contest. So that whole slew of lines, monstrous, but largely I paused it. Probably being comfortable with making beats caused it. So I first started writing rhymes when I was in, I want to say the 11th grade, maybe even the 12th grade, I forget. It might have been 11th or 12th grade, but I remember first writing rhymes to actually go-go beats. That's how I really started off with it. And then eventually I started kind of writing to beats that were kind of along the lines of the popular beats of the day. You talking 96, 97. You talking Bad Boy, you talking Death Row, like they were really the main two at that time that were popping. So that's a lot of the stuff that I was writing to, or that I had in mind when I was writing my own rhymes. But it took a little while before that part really elevated. But I really started getting into making beats, I would say in 97. But I didn't really start getting into making rap beats or hip hop beats probably until like 98, 99, and even then, to be honest, they weren't that good at that point. But the focus was more on production for a very long time, even up to the point where I say, but yeah, buddy, first time in the booth, just an intro, but the first lines were the truth. So that line is connected to when I was working with K-Mob. I had my man Clutch the Rapper on here 2 episodes ago, on episode 20, where we were talking about different things connected to the party scene, but Clutch was actually connected to the first group that I produced for. It was Clutch. Back then he was going as Black Sun. It was K-Dog and Crazy Al-Qaeda, or Crazy K back then, and they had a whole crew. It wasn't just K-Mob, it was a whole effing crazy crew, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying not to curse, you know what I mean? But it was a whole slew of folks, aka the 1-5 Millionaires, and they were the first ones that I was really producing for. And so we had this song that we were doing called Number One Contender. And so they had me do the opening lines, or I told them I had opening lines for the song. I forget exactly how it shaped out, but I never forget we was recording with this dude named Herb over on F Street in Northwest, and we recording in his studio, and that was my first time ever in the recording booth. This was 2003, almost 20 years ago. That was my first time ever in the booth. And when I tell you, and a lot of people will say the same thing, when I tell you it's a very magical experience to be in the booth for the first time, there is nothing like it. If you've never recorded in a booth, if you've never set foot in the booth, do yourself a favor. If you know somebody who records music, go with them to the studio one time. Just step in the booth. Even if you don't rap, even if you don't sing, just step in the booth. And I guarantee you, it'll be one of the most real experiences. Even if you just ask the engineer just to record your voice, you saying whatever it might be, to hear your voice in the headphones, to be in this small little room and it's just you, your voice, the mic, the headphones, and you may have eyes watching you. You go into a whole nother zone that I really can't describe, but it's something so magical about being in the booth. So when I got in there, knock 'em out the box, youngin', knock 'em out, youngin', knock 'em out the box, youngin', knock 'em out, youngin'. And I forget the rest of it, but it was basically the setup for everybody else on the song. And so those were my first lines I ever recorded in the booth. But then going to the lines where I say, then I heard myself grown up, compressed. Flow was jai hot, I might need a cold compress. So I wrote complex rhyme to keep my arms stretched from a competition, but it's still not a contest. And so the whole thing of I heard myself grown up, compressed. I never forget, they had this series of commercials on BET. And one of the people that always stood out was Crozette Michelle, because she was talking about the whole thing of how she sounded and her not really believing, oh my God, that's me. And I think it was her mother that was like, of course that's you, baby. You don't know what you sound like? And it was that whole experience for me. Like when I heard it back, I couldn't believe that that was me. And that's going to connect to some other lines I'm going to say in a second. But it's just crazy to like hear that. And of course, compress, anybody that's worked in the studio, you know, a lot of times you use compression on vocals and all of these different things to kind of sort of make the vocals stand out just a little bit more. Then kind of moving on to the lines, flow is jai hot, might need a cold compress. So I wrote complex rhyme to keep my arms stretched from a competition, but it's still not a contest. A star of the gang, but the masses I did not appeal. Nice less Webster's, more 93 Bonnevilles. So the reason why those lines are important is because my flow started becoming better. But there was a point in time when I was rapping, I would say between 99 and 2009, where my flow was really choppy sometimes because I would try to fit too many words into one bar. And that's almost like a cardinal sin as a rapper, to try to like be too verbose with things, and you end up saying too much, trying too hard, and you miss the mark. It's the whole, again, star of the gang, but the masses I did not appeal. The key thing is, and of course that's a play on words, gang star, mass appeal, but star of the gang, like here I am trying to be this rap star or this, I knew my star power. But the problem is, because I was so busy trying to be fancy with my words, I would literally go look in the dictionary. I'm like, okay, let me find the most complicated word I possibly can and fit it into this bar. But the problem is sometimes when you try to find these big words, you have to understand multisyllabic words in the midst of a flow. You have to be able to flow those words. It's not enough to have big words. It's another thing to actually flow the words and they make sense in what you're doing. Now, granted, I would never use a word out of context, but at the same time, you could use a word in context, but it still doesn't fit in the flow of the song. And so I had to really learn that art of flow. Then you get to the part, going back to the part where I say star of the gang, but the masses I did not appeal. Nice less Webster's, more 93 Bonnevilles. So the thing is, my rap is still intelligent to a certain level. Like it's never not going to be, because that's just the type of person I am. I'm an intelligent person, and I believe in spitting a certain way that not only intellectuals can understand, but the lay folk, the common folk can understand too. I believe in being somewhere in the middle. I had to learn how to be in the middle. It's that balance thing, being a Libra. You have to balance out what makes sense to you in your brain and what makes sense to somebody else in their brain who might not necessarily connect with these big words. Because if You're saying these big words, you're only hitting a certain audience. You're only appealing to certain people. If only 10% of the people who you're talking to understand what you're saying, then is what you're doing effective? Is the music you're making effective? And that was the key for me. I had to learn how to make music that was effective. I had to learn how to make music that was impactful, not just to me and my friends, or not just to people who I think, oh, you know, they read the dictionary like crazy like me, or they had the same humanities teacher that I had, who, if you didn't know a word, you had to look it up, because if you didn't and you got in her class and you read that same passage and she asked you what that word meant and you couldn't tell her what it meant, that means that you are reading words that you don't know what they mean. Not everybody had those same people pushing them, had those same teachers pushing them. Not everybody feels the need to use big words. Even if they are well versed in the dictionary, they don't necessarily feel the need to do so. And a lot of times, again, that gets in the way of the flow. So I had to sacrifice a little bit of the big words in order to flow better. Because for me, and for a lot of people, because I mean, let's really keep it real. Whenever people talked about the whole Biggie versus Pac debate, one of the things they always said in terms of what Biggie had over Pac was delivery. It was flow. And Biggie had it. Pac didn't have the same delivery. He didn't have the same flow. And it's no knock on Pac. That's just it. You know, I won't even go so far as to say Pac didn't have flow. Pac had flow, but he wasn't as buttery smooth as Biggie. And a lot of that comes with studying the beat. A lot of times, I know a lot of rappers are guilty of this. As a rapper, you try to force your flow on the beat. You try to tell the beat what to do instead of letting the beat tell you what to do. And I had to learn that art. I always praise two people when it comes to learning how to flow better. First and foremost, I praise my wife. She did two things. She always compared rap to sex and lovemaking. You gotta ride the beat much like you make love. There's a certain rhythm that you have to get into in order to really get the fireworks going. That was one part of her helping me to understand how to flow better. The other part was telling me to study people like Jay-Z and Juvenile. For her, they were two people who really understood the art of the flow. And so I started studying them more and more and more. And combine that with my experience with my brother, B. Witty. We were supposed to be in a rap group called Babe Ruthless. And the thing about B. Witty is that B. Witty was less of a writer and he was more of a freestyler. Like, that was his strength. Whereas me, more my strength was writing, and I wasn't necessarily as strong at freestyling off the top. Let me put it like that. I wasn't as strong as off the top rap as he was. So being around him, I picked up things from him and learning how to really freestyle a little bit better. He picked up things from me in terms of the art of writing. And it ended up being one of these things where I just really learned from those two people in my life. I learned how to flow better. And it shows up now that I'm older. Whenever people talk about certain songs that I had, they talk about my flow. I'm like, man, you flowing like a mug on that joint. Like, you really riding that beat. I'm like, look, I credit these two people for teaching me that art, of really helping me to understand the art of flow. Because it was a long way from trying to write these super deep, super complex, vocabulary-laden rhymes to, okay, you can be deep without the need for witty punchlines every 2-3 bars. You don't need all these big words. You don't need all of that in order to make an impact with your rhymes. Then you get to the lines where I say, I rode smooth on the Pro Tools. Folks who barely knew my middle name ain't believe that I'm the same dope dude. The funny thing about specifically that last line, folks who barely knew my middle name ain't believe that I'm the same dope dude. because, you know, people will know me for certain things. It goes back to what I was really talking about last week. So kind of thinking about the whole thing with comedy. People didn't expect me to do comedy because they were so used to me either singing or doing spelling bee or science fairs or public speaking or all of these other things that had nothing to do with comedy. Or even once I got the rap, people were so used to me doing singing or public speaking or whatever it might be that they couldn't really fathom the whole idea of me rapping. And I feel like it was the same thing where that line really comes from. I think about when I put out my first mixtape, The Legend of the Fall, back in 2009 when I turned 30. I can't tell you how many of my coworkers, like when I passed around the CD, because this is back in the CD time, I passed around the CD, let people hear, and they just could not believe that this was me. People who knew me well or kind of knew me but didn't know that aspect of me, or knew I did music, because a lot of times people say, oh, I do music, or I produce, or I rap, yada yada yada, and then it's like, okay, yeah, whatever, everybody does. But it's different when people hear that you say you do it and then they actually have the physical evidence in front of them and they're like, yo, you're like really good. I'm like, I try to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, it's no surprise to me. I knew that. I just had to convince you. I had to put this in your hands so you actually could understand, like, look, this ain't a game to me. Like, I take this seriously. Now, I might not be as great as some people at certain aspects of rapping, but what I do, I'm special. And I own that and I walk in that. You know, and it took me a long time, honestly, to walk in that. And it's still a struggle sometimes. And that brings me to the lines where I say, breaking down bars. Man, I could have worded that different. What if Sam Hill was that blur I ad-libbed in? And that syllable was supposed to be pronounced more. Where was the energy that should have made it bounce more? I mean, it's okay, could have made it count more. Then I hear the crowd shout more and doubt is outdoors. Whenever I would record in the booth over time, I would be very hard on myself because I would feel like, dang, I could have really delivered that line with a little bit more oomph, or I flubbed that word, but I don't feel like recording it again. Like sometimes I would leave certain mistakes in because it's like, you know, sometimes I want people to hear the natural mistake and not, it doesn't have to necessarily be perfect. I will have ad libs that I flub words all the time and people can barely hear it, but I know it's there because I remember when I messed it up. And there'll be other songs, like I can't tell y'all how many songs for this particular project for The Late Bloomer that when I left the session, I was like, man, my energy was not up for that song. But then I go back and I listen to it again. I'm like, man, I'm tripping. Like my energy was exactly where it needed to be. Or there's certain songs where I feel like when I go back and listen to it, like, man, I was screaming on that song. Like I really did not need to like be Biggie first album or right before the first album. Because anybody that know Biggie know there's a difference. And I bring up Biggie a lot when it comes to this song because, I mean, he's kind of sort of tied to the beginning. And then there are little pieces of the song whereas, like, it's a play off of things that he would say, like, you know, here's another one and another one. That's Biggie, of course, from Effing You Tonight. And so the thing about Biggie, like, when he first started rapping, it was so raw. It was so loud. You know, Biggie was like screaming on the tracks compared to what he did once he got to like Life After Death. Life After Death, you saw him calm down with his flow a lot. You saw him be a lot more relaxed in his delivery. He just got to a certain point where it was like, look, you can't tell me nothing about what I do. Like, what I do is special. I know what I'm doing when I get in this booth. I know the production that I'm getting. I know the vibes when I go wherever I'm going to record and I'm good. Like I'm just in this particular space of life. Even the way he's delivering it is just even more buttery smooth when he gets on a track. And that's how it became for me once I started really getting comfortable recording my own material. Because it's one thing recording mixtape stuff and you recording the other people's beats. But for me, it's different because not only do I rap, but I also produce more often than not 80 to 90% of my own beats. And so to be able to do that and deliver it with a certain confidence, but a certain cool, a certain calmness, a certain collected mentality, you have to be in the studio a couple of times, because those first couple of times I went in, I was just hyped. I was just ready. Like, yeah, let's get it. You know what I'm saying? But it was like maybe a little bit too much energy. But then it'd be sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to pick up the energy. I need a little bit more. I need a little bit more out of myself because I feel like I can do that better. It's just a matter of like knowing what I sound like, knowing how I deliver the music, and just trying to be consistent from song to song. Be consistent. Now, granted, every song is going to have its own personality. It's going to have its own energy. But at the same time, I still want to be able to deliver something energetic, something that keeps people engaged when I'm rapping. And I don't want to sound like just an amateur. I'm really a perfectionist when it comes down to it. But I have to sometimes dial back that perfectionism in order to really just be more of a creator who's just in the space of creating and enjoying the creative process. So then I finally get to the part where I say, then I hear the crowd shout, more in doubt is outdoors. That's very important because a lot of times we as artists, we get in our heads about how we sound, how we come off, how we deliver the lyrics. And a lot of times it's just that is in our heads, and it's really nothing for us to worry about, because when it comes down to it, it's about how the people receive it. And we could sit here and worry about, oh, did we flub a word and somebody catches it, or did we make a mistake and somebody catches it? Typically the only people that are going to hear it are you, your engineer, and somebody that's really freaking petty that's listening as attentively as they possibly can for every little mistake. Somebody who's just looking for the mistake. Other than that, nobody cares. And when it comes down to it, it's about how do people connect with the music. You could get caught up in whether or not you sound like this person. Like, I think about certain people who have very distinct rap voices. I think about somebody, I mean, I've mentioned Biggie, I've mentioned Pop. In this song, I've mentioned Redman, I mentioned Ice Cube. Thinking about other people I know who rap. Somebody just mentioned Snoop Dogg. Like, Snoop Dogg has one of the most distinct voices that you're ever going to hear in rap. Jadakiss has a very distinct voice. So many rappers I know have these unmistakable voices. Scarface, Jay-Z. Really, my top 5. Jay-Z, Scarface, Ghostface Killer, Biggie, Kendrick Lamar. They all have very distinct voices. Nobody sounds like these dudes whatsoever. And then there's me. And here I am in my head worried about, do I stand out from other people? When somebody hears me rap, can they tell me from somebody else? Can, when they hear me, it's undeniable that they say, oh, that's Throwback, or that's AJ, or that's AJ Throwback. And that's the thing that I concern myself maybe a little bit too much, when the bottom line is, do you make good music? Do you make music people want to listen to? Do you make music that has replay value? And that's the biggest thing. Not necessarily what your voice sounds like, but what your voice does with the words that you write. Because anybody can write great words, but can you deliver them? And the bottom line is that I know, without a shadow of a doubt at this point of my life as an artist, that not only can I write good lyrics or great lyrics, but I also can deliver them in a way that people want to connect with them. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have the support that I have. I wouldn't have the people reacting in the ways that they've reacted to my music. And I'm talking people who are not easy on people that they don't fool with. If they don't like what you're doing, they gonna let you know. I've had friends of mine let me know, like, hey, I don't know if that's really it. But as I continue to get better, as I continue to evolve, whether it's been with the beats, whether it's been with the rhymes, as I continue to evolve, people have let me know like, yo, I'm seeing your growth. Yo, you really getting better. Yo, that song though, like it really hit me. When you start getting to that level where people see your star power continue to rise and you just continue to ascend to higher heights, people will let you know. They're going to let you know and they're going to be honest with you. And I've been blessed to have people in my corner who have not only helped me to get better, but have also not been shy and letting me know, hey, Joe, you really doing a great job, man. Like, continue to keep it up. And that, my friends, is how you really own your voice. At the end of the day, whether I had the validation or not, I know the growth that I've been seeing in myself. I know the work that I've been putting in. And more than anything, I know my voice is special because God gave me this voice. He didn't just give me this voice at one point to sing. He didn't just give me this voice at one point to do public speaking. He didn't just give me this voice at one point to be in spelling bees. He didn't give me this voice at one point to just be in radio. He didn't give me this voice at one point to do comedy and do these impersonations and mimic other people's voices. That's the irony of that I was mimicking other people's voices while not necessarily owning my voice all the way. How about that? I just literally thought about that in that moment, how powerful that is. One of the only times the only time I've only been in a talent show one time where I placed for money. And that time, ironically, is when I was impersonating other people's voices. But the money or the wealth, long term, is in me owning my own voice. I'm gonna close out with this because I have to close out with this. I'll never forget when my best friend, Country, when he's seen me from the very beginning. He saw me from one of the first rounds he ever saw me wrote called Holding Back the Rage. This is back in 2003. He was staying with me for like maybe a week or so. And he happened to be looking through my books and he read my rhymes like, yo, this is dope, bro. Like, you need to be rapping for real. And so he saw that evolution from 2003. Then I put out my first two mixtapes, Legend of the Fall and the 8-Track Bandit, 2009, 2010. Then I let him hear, he was the first person, it was him and somebody he was dating at the time. I let him hear the demo versions of The Late Bloomer. And I'll never forget what he said to me in the car. He was like, yo, this is the first time I feel like I'm hearing you. Like before, it's like I felt like, you were you, but you were you kind of influenced by other people. This is the first time I'm hearing you, and it's unmistakably you. And then fast forward, this is 2014 when I'm saying this. Then fast forward, I want to say it was earlier this year. Then he said to me, he was like, yo, he said, like I'm paraphrasing, but he said, yo, you have a market on real rap. Like honest rap, like where you tell it like it is. You just give your truth. You're transparent. Like you've tapped into something with that's special. That's undeniably you. And that is owning your voice. Realizing what you do best. It doesn't have to be rap. It doesn't have to be public speaking. It doesn't have to be singing. It doesn't have to be anything where you're even on a microphone. Owning your voice could be just as simple as you knowing the power that God has put inside of you and you walking in that truth. You speaking up for yourself. You're telling your story because it's important for each and every last one of us to tell our story and control our own narrative no matter what we do in life. That's owning your voice. That's why I am wearing this shirt right here that says I am the proud and rightful owner of my voice. Because That's what it's about. Owning who you are, owning your words, owning your thoughts, owning your sentiments, and walking strong in it. That's the point that I had to get to. That's what this song is all about at the end of the day. And I'm going to leave that right there because I've said enough. But if you don't have my latest single, Take 37, back with Senior Week Forever, it is the same place where you can get this very t-shirt that I just showed off. Once again, I'm going to show it to you once again, where it says, I am the proud and rightful owner of my voice, based on the song Take 37. And then it pulls the lines in where I say, I mean, it's okay, could have made it count more. Then I hear the crowd shout more, and doubt is outdoors. Music, merch, one spot, BAMMLLC.net. Once again, BAMMLLC.net. Get the merch, get the music. You get the music, you can connect to your favorite streaming platform, or you can go to my Bandcamp page if you're a Bandcamp person from my website, or you can go directly to my Bandcamp page if you're a Bandcamp person, and that address is ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. Once again, that's ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. If this is your first time consuming any of my content here on YouTube, first and foremost, I appreciate you. Second of all, please spread the love. Make sure you like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification so whenever I go live, post a new video, premiere a new video, you'll be among the first to know. And if you're not already following me on social media, please do so. I follow back. Hit me up on Facebook and Twitter at AJThrowback, or on Instagram and TikTok at a.j.throwback. And I do follow back. So next week, we are going to get into the B-side of this new single, Take 37, which is Senior Week Forever, featuring my brother D Bell. Definitely excited to talk about this particular song. At one point, this was actually my favorite song on the entire project. Kind of fell down the ranks a little bit, but it's still a very personal song for me because it's talking about my college experience, which is a once in a lifetime experience for me. But I'm definitely excited to talk about the whole concept of Senior Week Forever. Can't wait to break those lyrics down with y'all. But until then, I'd like to thank everybody for all of your support, supporting the music, supporting the merch, and of course, supporting the Maximum Sentence, where there's conviction behind the bars. I'm your man, AJ Throwback, and until next week, y'all have a great week. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And be blessed, y'all. All right? See y'all next time. Peace.
I just had to get over myself, fam. My voice is my voice. Take one, take two, here's another one. Take three, take four, and another one. Take 5, take 6, take 37. Chill.